This conference will now be recorded.
Aaron, you need to mute your mic.
I'm a tad nervous about a quorum, but maybe it'll get better quick.
Jimbo, what's happening, man?
Oh, I just thought I'd come to this little meeting. How are you doing? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Any better, you and I be out dancing in the parking lot.
I mean,
I thought you were gonna dance with me. You two-timing.
easy, big fella.
Yeah. You only need to worry when my face gets.
Hmm.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Good.
Good.
I've been trying to excellent.
Hey, Ben, welcome. Can you hear us? Evidently, Ben can't hear us. Ben, can you hear us?
I
You
can
need to
hear.
unmute your mic. You need to unmute your mic.
I'm unmuted. I can hear you.
Linda.
Hi, everyone.
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
This is Jim, guy signing in.
Great.
Hello, Jim.
Hello?
I don't even see Jim Guy on the list, on the pictures here.
He must be on the
I'm
phone.
I'm the
Oh,
styling in. I'm
he
not,
must be caller
yeah.
two.
I'm hiding out.
He's the only one who doesn't have a name.
Yeah, it lights up when he talks.
Jim, if you're caller two, say something.
Yes, that's me,
Ah, okay.
I suppose.
It looks that way.
I think that gets us up to 6, Madam Chair.
Oh, great. And I believe there were 7 that responded to my email, so I don't see Mr. Mendez.
Amadeo?
Yes, Mr.
Amadeo
Pereira.
said that he would, Amadeo said he would be here. Let me text him. I texted him. I can't find the agenda.
Yes, hello,
What day was,
I'm here.
what?
We have a,
I'm trying to log on now. When was the agenda sent out anyway?
I'm here.
I can look and see if it has a date on the ones I've got.
I can always go to the city website.
Mine was sent on Monday, October 26th.
Yes,
26?
yes, 11:15 in the morning.
I got an update today.
You did?
On the agenda?
Yes. Oh, not on the agenda, but on the package.
Right.
Oh, crap.
I can email an agenda that has a link, if that would help.
All right. Yeah, go ahead and send it to my city email. Where did it come from?
It came from Dave Street.
Oh, okay.
The agenda's part of the package too.
It's in the packet and it's on the website link, but
All right.
I can send it separately. I keep a copy from when I uploaded it.
There's still just 4 variances, right?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's correct.
Okay.
2 of them are the same property, so.
Send Amadeo another link too, if you don't mind.
I will forward it.
All right, I'm on. Let's see. Okay.
One, two, three. I'm not recognizing some of these names. I'm assuming they're property owners.
Probably.
Yes, we are the property owners, Maria Ibarra and Iskander Jenner for 2204 American Drive, FYI. Hello, everybody.
I was just trying to make sure we had enough for a quorum, so.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Perez is joining us as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it. His name is down here. He's just muted. So, will somebody confirm that we have a forum?
I'm here.
Quorum. Sorry. Let's see, we got Jim, Amadeo, Linda, Mike, Howard, and Jim Guy. Who'd I miss?
Howard. How could you miss Howard?
Where's Jim Kaysen?
He's up there.
Upper right.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
I'm here.
5, 6, 7. Yeah, we have 7.
And we have a full boat.
We do. So let's call this meeting to order and get started. We've got a lot to cover today. In accordance with the Open Meeting Act, the board is prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to specific questions, any items that are not on the agenda. All matters listed in item 2, which is the consent agenda, are to be considered routine by the commission and will enact by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. So if anyone has those comments. The first thing on the agenda is to consider approval of the minutes from the October 5th, 2020 regular meeting. Did everyone have an opportunity to review those? And are
Yeah.
there any corrections?
They were good with me.
They
If
look
there's
good with
no
me,
correction,
Beth.
I just need a motion to accept them as presented.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
I second Howard.
All those in favor?
I,
All right.
Aye.
Can I get a show of hands because I can't tell where the ayes are coming from? 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's good. All right, the minutes are accepted. And we'll move on to the public hearing and action. So the first thing we have is the application for a variance granting relief from the requirements of section 5.40 of chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow an existing built without a permit structure consisting of a raised wood deck within the required rear yard setback at 2204 American Drive or Highland Lake Estate, section 26, lot 26076. And the first is the staff presentation, please.
Yes, ma'am. As you'll recall, this is a property that was on your last month's agenda for the fence. And when we were looking at the fence, when we discovered the deck was encroaching in the rear yard setback. As you will recall, you wanted to defer both applications until you had a chance to consider the deck first. So that is why you have that one in there. Typically, the rear yard setback is a concern with the privacy of the person you share a rear property line with. In this case, that lot is owned by the neighbor to the east, and that neighbor simply bought that lot, commingled it with their other lot, and it has nothing but accessory buildings on it. So I don't think the privacy issue would be nearly as significant here as it would be in a normal lot. As a result, the staff had no particular concern about the rear yard setback encroachment.
If I remember correctly, they were waiting on a release of the easement from the utility companies.
They are, but that really doesn't have anything to do with the deck. The deck is not in the easement. What is in the easement is and the deck wouldn't be necessarily even an encroachment in the easement, even if it were. The issue with the easement, it has to do with the concrete pad that the hot tub is sitting on. And the hot tub being a portable item, and the slab being exempt from the setback, the issue there has to do with the utility easement. The fact that that easement is 15 feet deep on the rear property line goes back to the lots that were platted in old Lago. Those easements were all on the rear property line, and that's where the expectation of the utilities were. Quite frankly, we don't put them there now. So that it is very common and easy for you to go through the process, and we typically vacate all but 5 feet of that easement. And it's fairly routine, but you got to go through the process.
So are we even necessary for this?
For the easement, no. The easement is unrelated, and they're completely unrelated and separate, and they may have the releases already to go ahead and process that. If they do, it's an administrative approval. The Board of Adjustment's not involved at all.
So what is the
Roy,
exact issue with the deck?
It's setback. It encroaches, as I recall, let me get you an exact number. 14.03 feet is how much it encroaches. It's about 10 feet from the rear property line, or 11 feet from the rear property line. Normally it's, you want it to be 25 feet like the house, but in this case there's no privacy concerns. There's nobody back there other than the accessory buildings, the storage buildings. One of them you can see in one of the photographs I think we gave you.
Roy, hey, this is Howard. I understand the real issue is that the deck is too high. Is that correct?
No, sir. The height,
It's
it wouldn't matter how tall it was. Anything that is not considered like a slab or something that's exempt. There are certain exemptions or exceptions, if you will, to structures that are allowed in setback. This isn't one of them.
okay.
So
I understand you had told us the last time, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said if they had sent in permits for this, they would have been denied. Is that correct?
until they got this variance, yes, sir.
Okay, until they got the variance. Okay.
Right.
Because it encroaches past the build line is what I understand
Right.
now.
And the only if this were sitting on top of a concrete slab with just a wood deck on top of a slab, we would that would be an accepted exception. But because it's not that, it is a structure, if you will, and meets the requirements of the structure, and it's not specifically exempt. It's supposed to meet the building line unless you give it a variance.
Okay.
Roy, do we have a statement from the neighbor?
The neighbor to the immediate west.
Yes, the neighbor it's their property that rolls around behind their house too, right?
Right. We did hear from them. They
Yeah.
were in favor.
Okay.
The one that's behind, the one that's to the west, we tried to contact them, but that's still listed as being belonging to own homes. And we tried to get contact information for that individual and were unable to do so. However, there was a sign posted on the property and has been for 2 months now. So if they had any objections, they should have known how to contact us based on that sign.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Roy?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well then I guess we're ready to listen to the applicant's presentation. And who is the applicant in this particular?
Yes,
that
hello.
Maria?
This is Iska. I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead. Do you have something you want to say about the deck?
Well, not really. I mean, I was worried about the hate, but Roy was talking about that already. I mean, as I said before, we didn't know that we have to pull a variance and permit for this. Basically, it's just a deck with a rail, and we went maybe a little bit too far in the back, but we're still inside the property, and the neighbor is okay with that. I'm not sure. Do you have any specific question about the deck?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Does anyone have a Jim? Go ahead.
Not specific to the deck, but I'm wondering if I mean, did you read the conditions that we have to believe are true in order to grant this variance? The 11.20 of the zoning code?
The paperwork in the business pack, I'm sorry, in the meeting package, the one that
Yeah,
I have. Yes, I did.
the one that, basically says there has to be a hardship. We have to, it has to be a substantial hardship for us to grant the variance.
What is that part exactly?
Well, it's section dot 11.20 of the chapter 14, which is the zoning code, and that outlines the things that there's 7 conditions, I believe, that we have to believe are all true in order to grant the variance. And if we find that they're not all true, then we can't really grant the variance. So I'm wondering, if you read that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that.
Can you tell us, please, the page number? Because we went over all the package.
We went over all the package,
but not the.
This was, ma'am, this was with the application form. It was the handout that was attached to the application form.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in the packet.
Jim,
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 items there, Jim. Can you read those off?
I will be here a while. Okay, item number one, we have to find that there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved such that the strict application of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of his land or would result in significant practical difficulties or unreasonable hardship to the landowner, or unreasonable disruption of the natural terrain or unreasonable destruction of existing flora. Such that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial right of the applicant. So, right there, you got to ask yourself, there's a substantial right for you to have a deck in your backyard.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that these are things that, when you consider these variances, these are the things that need to be addressed. You can't just, you can't come in and say, well, I want it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. You say at the time that we build it without permit?
No, it really, even if you were trying to get a variance prior to getting the permit, these are issues that still have to be addressed. That's the way. Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right on target, Mr. Kaysen. The board has to find these 7 items to properly grant a variance.
Has to meet all 7 of them, Aaron?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, based on that, if you're just reading the first one, it kind of disqualifies it, doesn't it? That there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved, such that the strict application of the provision of this chapter would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of his land or would result in significant practical difficulties or unreasonable hardship to the landowner, or unreasonable disruption of the natural terrain, or unreasonable destruction of existing flora. So, based just that one alone kind of disqualifies it, doesn't it? I'm just asking the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe because the language, I'm not getting this straight. Please, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. It's maybe because the language, because the English. I can try it again. No problem. Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Jimmy. Okay, the
But-
first one says that there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved such that the strict application of the provision of this chapter would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of his land or would result in significant practical difficulties or unreasonable hardship to the landowner or unreasonable disruption to the natural terrain or unreasonable destruction of the existing flora. So, you know, I'm trying to figure out how that applies here.
I think those are the issues, part of the issues at least that the landowner needs to address rather than just coming before us and saying, because I want it. You know, they have to address these issues that how it restricts them from using their property if we don't grant this variance, and that there's no reasonable alternative to the requested variance. The variance is no greater than the minimum required to alleviate the difficulty or the hardship for which the variance is requested. That granting the variance will not have the effect of preventing the orderly use of other land in the area in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. Variances may be granted only when in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter, so that the public health, safety, and welfare may be secured and substantial justice is done. Pecuniary hardship to the applicant standing alone shall not be deemed to constitute undue hardship. In other words, the cost of the project cannot be part of the consideration for the hardship. And that the variance will not violate the intent of the zoning ordinance nor the goals of the city's master plan. And last but not least, that such variance shall not restrict the reasonable and unnecessary obstructed access to sunlight and preservation of views of those of the properties which might be affected. That's why we ask for your neighbor what they think.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to address any of those, Mr. Lander? I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Yes. I think I need some.
Oh, I think my husband got disconnected. So I'm his wife. We're kind of lost of that all particular, those are like really like legal words that we're not familiar with. So we need to, go over and understand exactly what it means. I'm sorry. We want to be honest because we didn't go over those 7 points you guys are mentioned. We just filled out the application. We went over the packet. We request the utility easements and we follow whatever Alice from the city told us. But we need to understand very well those 7 points.
Well,
I will find out again.
I'm back. Sorry.
He's back.
The ordinances are rules that everyone needs to follow. And if you want an exception to those rules, you need to come to us and tell us why you need that exception. And that's when you apply for the permit. So that exception is based on special circumstances. So are there special circumstances involved on your property? Is there some special reason why you think your deck should be considered an exception?
I think the way you have to think of this is that typically there's going to be a special circumstances that are related to your property as opposed to all of those properties around you. In Lago Vista, probably elevational changes, the fact that somebody, this is getting to the fence, because somebody's property is higher than yours, you don't have privacy in your backyard. But there's many people in Lago Vista that have that same situation. So, you either have to let everybody have that or nobody. It has to be something special about your property that you can't overcome without a variance.
Correct.
That's the way I think of it. And
Okay, let me play the devil's advocate here, okay? It says there are special conditions affecting the land involved such that the applicant would deprive the applicant of reasonable use as land. So it would, I guess in their case, the area, the space between the back of their house and their fence is not really big enough to put a deck back there. Okay.
Oh, I understand now.
Okay.
We want to put a hot tub in the back, and tell me if I'm wrong with my answer. And the space is so small, and we want to have a hot tub and a small living room. That's why we decided to make it bigger. Does that make sense, or is that something that helped?
I'm sorry. Say that again. I don't think I understood that.
So we want to put a hot tub in the back. So it's going to be a deck with a hot tub, but the space between the stairs where the house finish and the end of the land is so small. That's why we make it bigger, because it's very small, the back. Is that something that help? I mean, I'm trying to understand how can we address this, and if it's something, if it's some answer to the question.
No.
I think this, Howard, I think what he's saying, Jim, is that the setback is so large, it comes into his backyard, and he doesn't have the room to put a reasonable sized deck there. I think that's what he's trying to say.
That is correct, sir.
Hot tub,
yes.
And he's not trying. He doesn't have the room to put a reasonable sized deck there with the setback. Okay, and the setback is, that's really, he's going to have to get the releases, because if they decide to come through there, there's nothing he can do. They can tear it down, and there's not a whole lot he can do about that.
Well, I understand that, Howard, but there's many people in Lago that have, in my backyard, I couldn't put a deck because of the setback.
My concern.
There has to be a special circumstance that's different makes his property different from everybody else's. And just because there's not enough room in the backyard to put a deck is not a special circumstance that everybody else. And that's just the way I'm reading the law. There is room for a deck, it looks to me like, on the side of his house. The same size deck he has could have been switched around and put on the side, and there's a failure of the city, I believe, that people are moving into this town and are not being made aware that they have to have permits to build decks and fences. I don't know how you do it in a water bill or the greeting committee or something, but that word needs to get out.
We're going to, when we get done, Jim, I'll try to address some of that at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
That's a good idea, Tim, is to put a flyer in the water bill or something along that line that tells people, hey, if you're going to build certain things, you better check with the city and make sure you don't need a permit.
It's right on the website. I mean, as soon as you open it up, do I need a permit? And everything is there. Personally, guys, I've always known that you need a permit to do anything on a house.
Well, and let me add, the contractors certainly do, even if the homeowners don't. And that's
another issue.
Yeah, that's a part of the thing. That's part of what I want to discuss with you all when we get done. I mean, it's
okay.
Somebody, we got to find a way to stop it. So
I think Roy addressed some of the hardship that this homeowner is experiencing when he said that the property behind him most likely will not be built on because it belongs to the neighbor and then consolidated into a single piece of property. So unless the neighbor who actually has consolidated that with his home lot puts another home back there, the odds are that being so close to the fence will not affect the neighbor behind him, because it's unlikely that he will have a neighbor behind him.
Yeah. And that was one of the other 6 criteria. And that was definitely one of those, as I recall. But, and that related specifically to the impact on the other property owners.
Was there anyone here who wanted to speak to this issue that is not the homeowner and is not on the board?
Hey, Faith, Freth, I mean, I don't have a problem with the deck. Okay, I really don't have a problem with that. I mean, if somebody wants to build a deck and it goes into their right of ways, it's up to them to get the variance. I mean, to get the permits to alleviate the variances. And I mean, the right of ways. However, the fence thing, to me, the 8-foot fence is uncalled for. We don't need an 8-foot fence. I don't think most people need an 8-foot fence. Yeah, we haven't got to that yet, but that's my feeling about the whole thing.
So let's try to figure out, where there may be with that deck. So we know that he has got a slope in the backyard, and his house, because of that slope, the house had to be at a certain elevation. We know that if he built that deck on the ground surface, it would be legal. That's what Roy said, if you had it on ground surface or within a certain distance of the ground. But he can't do that because of the slope that he has. He has to have a higher deck in order to keep it level. So,
Yeah, I believe one end is almost on the ground from what I saw, and the other end is off the ground a couple of feet.
so you could
But
make.
the question is not the height, it has to do with the depth of the deck into the right of way, the build line, so to speak.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
Had it been simply a wood finish on top of a slab that was in close contact to the ground, it would have qualified it for an exception, and it wouldn't been considered an encroachment into the setback. Now, once again, it's not the deck that is, an issue. It's the amount of it that encroaches towards the rear property line.
Right. And it's significantly encroaching 14 feet from what the measurement was.
Okay, so could that be considered a special circumstance?
It could be, I suspect. A lot of the builders now are building, as large a house as they possibly can. So they're taking up from build line to build line, side, front, back, all the way around. So there's really no space left for the homeowner to build anything without getting a variance. So I think part of his hardship is that he really couldn't use his backyard for anything except grass without a variance.
Right.
Right.
He would only have like 10 feet or less before he encroached into that build line.
So you're saying if you buy a small lot and you build a big house on it, your hardship is that you don't have room to put what you want.
I guess.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, Jim. It's the builder's fault, I guess, but I know when I built in my backyard, I had to get, all the permits and so forth, but the setback is pretty significant. in most people's yard these days. And it was significant in mine, even though I didn't have, you know, a particularly small backyard.
My
I don't
setback,
think it's considered a legitimate hardship if you're dealing within the parameters of what you purchased and how that fits into the ordinances that apply to the property that you purchased. I don't see that as a legitimate hardship. I do feel some concern that we're raising this issue now with the applicant about now asking him to identify his hardship when, yes, he was told when he applied he needed to identify one of those 7 hardships or identify all of them, but we did not raise it at the last meeting, and we spent a substantial amount of time with him at the last meeting, and we were remiss in raising that. And so I almost feel like morally we have waived our right to, and I know this could be, there's another side to this, but I kind of feel like we've kind of waived our right to require this at this point because we didn't raise it last time. We didn't say it was something that the applicant had to come and address this time and to satisfy us on this point at this time. So I think we should consider, to me, I think we should consider that issue waived.
I think we did consider it last time, not directly, because last time we were talking about the fence particularly and not the deck. Roy did indicate that there was some issues with the deck, but it's part of the application process.
But we didn't last time say, when you come back, you've got to identify your hardship. Tim, what? I know that what I'm saying is really a slippery slope. I recognize that. So I would like alternate opinions. I'm just saying how I'm looking at it, and I'm willing to be dissuaded.
Didn't somebody say that in the application for the variance, these are in the packet?
They are.
Not only in the packet, it's in red. If you'll look at the application form itself, it's in bold red right above where you sign.
Also, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Right.
It's more of understanding how difficult and subtle, I guess, those requirements are is what usually escapes most people's attention. Not that that matters either, but that is easy to overlook.
And wasn't one of the reasons we delayed this was because of to get releases from the utility companies?
Perhaps,
That-
but
that-
they weren't, you know, it certainly didn't have anything to do with the fence.
No. But we were trying to get, I think part of our concern was if he got releases from those people, that might alleviate his particular issue, but I don't know if he got them.
Excuse me. Can I talk?
Please.
Okay. We're talking about the utility that has to approve or no the setback, which is Pedernales, AT&T, and Spectrum. That's what we're talking about now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We have all 3 approved, and we sent it to Alice a few days ago. She probably has it.
Okay.
It's in
So
my basket.
all the 3 companies, they approve it. So nothing is there, and nothing is going to be. That's what they put in the formal letter on the paperwork that they sent, and we already sent it to Miss Alice. I'm not sure if she put she sent it to Mr. Roy.
It is in my basket, and as soon as I get to it, I will finish that work.
No problem, sir. I just wanna let you know. Yeah.
And those are in fact very routine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I said, you have to kind of understand the history of the way lots were platted in Lago. There used to only be a front yard setback, and there was a big utility easement in the rear with the expectation that's where everything would be located. in a kind of an alley sort of configuration.
Okay.
And that's why the lots are as small as they are, because there were almost no setbacks except at the street.
Yeah.
But nobody puts utilities back there if they can avoid it.
So Roy, why do we continue to have rear yard setbacks? What's the purpose of them now?
Is that a privacy issue, wasn't it, Roy?
Yes, sir. And that is inherently why you have a rear yard setback. And understand that, the history of Lago, these were vacation homes.
Yeah.
Where, the need for a big backyard as opposed to doing your playing on the lake and all that sort of thing. The expectations are different from that in a regular residence. I would say it's the way Lago was originally platted that's unusual, not the current requirements.
But I think then the answer to your question is why we continue to have them, because they're part of the original plat.
Well, you're talking about the easements?
Is that,
yes. Right. You have them because there's a process you got to go through, and there's a cost and an expense. So we can't wave our fingers and make them go away. Yeah. See, those have to be released by those 3 utility companies.
Seems to me if they've already been released, why are we even considering at this point? I'm missing something here.
Roy, can you, I want to make sure we're not mixing apples and oranges.
Right.
The public utility easement that exists along the side of the yard and across the back of the yard along the back at 15 foot and then along the sides at 5 foot, that's a different issue than what we're talking about for the deck. The deck is in violation of the 25-foot setback, or as building line. That's as far back as you can construct something on that piece of property that's considered a structure. And so that's really the issue for the deck, is you're past that building line. I looked at the topo lines, the topographic lines that show the grade of the property, how steep it is in the back. There was discussion regarding what might be a hardship. For example, if your property dropped off immediately, it was a steep grade such that you didn't have any use of your property on the backside because the grade was too steep, that might come closer to a hardship because it would prevent you from being able to have any viable use of your property. Or it might, if it was extremely steep, it might be a dangerous situation. In this particular case, it looks like you have a slight slope back where it's you start at the back edge of the slab is 783, and then it goes to 782 and then 781. So really you only have a 2-foot drop along that back space. The area where the deck is barely drops on only really kind of on one corner. And so it's the grade of the property is not necessarily something that would create a severe hardship. The fact that they want to put something in that backyard past the build line, it's difficult to say that there's some hardship. It can use that backyard as is with grass or some other surface that would not encroach into the build line. So from a purely legal standpoint, it would be very difficult to demonstrate that there's a true hardship that creates the need to build the deck that deep into the yard. Now, the existing patio and the build line, you know, it is narrow. It would only allow for a very narrow deck past that build line. But their choice to build the deck on a piece of property that otherwise doesn't have some condition that is unique to that property that would prevent them from using the property, that circumstance does not exist for this particular lot. I hope that's helpful to your thinking.
That's very helpful, because the question I had is, are we allowed, would it be, is it permissible for us to allow this under the law? And it really doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like it is, the way it's written. And it pains me because there's been a lot of expense here and a lot of time and everything. So I feel bad about that, but I'm not sure how we can approve it.
It doesn't look like information provided that would substantiate those hardships that was provided by the applicant.
I'm sorry, Aaron, I didn't hear that.
You know, in this particular situation, it doesn't appear that the applicant provided any information that would justify or substantiate that hardship, that one requirement. You know, if they want to go back and look at this closer, now that it's clear that they were not prepared to address the specific legal requirements of the application, if they want to go back, Madam Chair, if you want to give them that opportunity and you want to postpone this application for, you know, 30 days or a week or however long you want, you can. You have the authority to do that so that they can really make a greater attempt at justifying the need for this variance, and meet how they meet the requirements of each of those. It may be very difficult to do. So if, you know, if the board doesn't find that additional time would be of use, then you may have to move forward with your analysis and make your determination.
Well, the options I see are either, to me, I mean, it's obvious we either have to reject it or we give them time to present a hardship. Let us know why it is a hardship to them.
I agree with that.
Mrs. Ibarra, do you understand what's going on? Señora, ¿sí entiende lo que te están diciendo?
Sí, sí, sí. Bueno, más o menos. Yo le puedo llamar a usted después, pues solo para...
No, todo tiene que ser hecho aquí. Todo tiene
ok. ¿Qué es exactamente el hardship?
Hardship. Tiene usted que demostrar algo que, ¿cómo se dice? Hardship. Algo que...
Dice privación, pero no entiendo a qué se refiere en español, sinceramente. No sé qué término es el apropiado para...
Con, ¿cómo se dice? Privación. Tiene que hacer con algo que tiene que demostrar por qué se deben de cambiar estas reglas, que cómo le están haciendo la vida más dura para ustedes.
Ok. Sí, pero Amadeo, es una cosa, básicamente, a ver si tú me ayudas a compartir esto con el resto. La razón es que nosotros hicimos sin saber lo que teníamos que hacer, pedimos mil disculpas, etcétera, etcétera, y ya está hecho. Entonces, básicamente lo que sería el hardship es que el dueño de allá atrás no tiene ningún problema porque en ese terreno nunca se va a construir nada porque el otro terreno es una L. Entonces, ese podría ser un hardship y de hecho podemos tenerlo a él en la reunión o algo como para ver si eso sea algo que ayude, porque básicamente nunca van a construir nada ahí. Ese terreno es una L. Entonces es de él y él está totalmente de acuerdo.
What she's saying is that what she basically said is the hardship is, and it's not really hard. I don't think she understands, because she says that because that property will not be built on, that they should be allowed to do it, but that's not a hardship, you know. It's ¿cómo se dice? No les conviene.
No sé qué es hardship, en realidad en español debe ser otra palabra.
Ahorita le digo.
Dale.
1 second, please.
Gracias, gracias. Y por favor, Amadeo, lo que quiero transmitir, y muchísimas gracias por tu ayuda, es que en realidad, o sea, nosotros si hubiéramos sabido, totalmente hubiéramos seguido paso a paso todo lo que se tiene que hacer, pero en realidad ya está hecho. Entonces, en este punto sí les pido, y yo sé que ustedes están haciendo su trabajo, y yo entiendo, pero es que si hay la oportunidad de que al vecino no le afecta, por favor nos ayuden, porque sí, hemos gastado en todos nuestros ahorros y todo en eso, y en realidad nos afectaría mucho a nivel personal. Si en algo puede ayudar eso. Yo sé que no sé si eso importe, pero quiero transmitir eso a todo el board.
Yeah.
Gracias.
What she's saying is the hardship is the problem is going to be changing it now, because it's already been constructed and everything. And I'm just telling you what she told me. She says the hardship is that now trying to correct it or trying to undo it creates a hardship. And my translator won't tell me what a hardship is in Spanish.
Well, yeah, that should have been before. I have, will you ask Ms. Ibarra, did they have a contractor do this work? And do they know if this contractor has a general liability or contractor's general liability insurance policy? I'm sure they don't.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I think that's a question for my husband, because he's got the one. Iska, are you there? Iska.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Está preguntando si sabemos si el contratista tenía la póliza de seguros y todo eso.
He is a neighbor in another house that we have. I have to check with him. He's just a friend, and I work with him there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
All right. The reason I asked that is that the contractor, both you and the contractor, built this without a permit in the wrong place.
Yes, correct. Now,
typically, if the person is a contractor, they usually have insurance for mistakes they make.
Okay,
if that person has insurance for the mistake, you can go back to him and have him corrected.
Okay, yeah, we gotta double check with him, yeah, because it's our first time doing this kind of thing in this country, and I'm sorry, yeah, we didn't know about anything, but we'll make sure about the insurance.
Hey, Tim, this is Howard. I think it's a good idea, Freth, to just delay this 30 days and give them the opportunity to go back to the contractor and such, and and see what's going on here, because I don't know right now what's happening with this.
Señora, ¿sabe lo que es la
sí.
palabra penuría?
No entiendo esa palabra.
Okay, ese es hardship en español, es penuría.
¿Penuría?
Penuría.
En mi vida he escuchado, pero voy a investigar, voy a investigar bien, porque como son términos legales, tengo que mirar bien, pero no sé qué es o sea, de pronto yo conozco con otro nombre. Sí, yo voy a investigar. Si por favor nos dan el próximo plazo, yo me informaré mejor y miro exactamente lo que necesitan para poder entregarles todo eso.
she's going to look into it, and so she understands better what a hardship is. I agree. I think we got to give them another 30 days rather than just turn it down right now. I think that's the only option we have.
The other thing too, Amadeo, if you'll explain to them to go look at the permit and see what those 7 conditions are. They can
Yes.
interpret that or read it again to understand what we are asking about the hardship.
Yeah. ¿Entendió, señora?
Sí, que tengo que mirar bien los 7 puntos del permit para ver cuál es mi hardship. Yes,
Porque
okay.
va a tener que demostrar cada uno, cada punto, por qué debe de pues dejarlo allí, el deck.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, lo vamos a mirar. Muchas gracias.
So I make a motion that we delay this.
In this too?
I'm sorry?
Are we making a point of the fence being a little bit tall on this too?
We haven't addressed the fence.
That yet, I don't think.
No, we haven't
addressed
the
the fence.
I think that needs to be addressed if they're going back to the contractor on it.
So,
Is it the same?
Well,
I think
Because I don't think that you think you're going to have an issue with the fence as far as showing a hardship too.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that we give them another 30 days to address both issues, the deck and the fence, so they can come back with a better argument, or talk with their contractor, see if they can make it compliant, or whatever they choose to do with that? Do we want to give them that for both variances now?
Okay.
Yeah, but you might want to explain the fence is going to be totally different than the slab.
Yeah, it'll be a separate argument, but I suspect some
Still
of it
needs to be addressed.
Madam Chair, just as a procedural item, I would recommend taking up, having separate motions, one for each, because you haven't technically opened the second item yet, but it's clear the direction that your group is wanting to go.
Okay. So we have a motion to extend their period for another 30 days on the deck.
Okay.
We need a second on that.
I'll second it. This is Howard.
Okay. And then we need to vote that we're all in agreement with that. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so the deck will be put off for another 30 days while they check with their contractor and see how they can come in compliance or have a better argument for the variance showing some sort of hardship. So I think it's time to move on to the second variance, which would be their fence. Application for a variance granting relief from the requirement of Section 22, Chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow an existing 8-foot wood privacy fence, type E wooden stockade fence, approximately 40 feet in length along a common side property line at 2204 American Drive or Highland Lake Estate, Section Lot 26076. And I guess we need to hear from Roy first.
Yes, ma'am. About the only thing I would add that hasn't been discussed is, given the fact that they have a right to build a deck, if it were not encroaching into the setback, and the fact that that deck might require additional height in a fence to create equivalent privacy, I think there are other issues here, and I don't necessarily think that they're interrelated with the setback encroachment. I'm not so sure whether the encroachment has anything to do with the need for privacy on the deck, but that doesn't mean that they're not entitled to the additional 30 days to deal with the hardship issue. Like I said, the desire for a deck may have created the hardship, if you will, for the fence.
This is Howard. I'd like to suggest that we delay this for 30 days as well. Give them the opportunity to go back, think about this, and make their arguments.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Feth, you have
Is there any discussion on that? Does the applicant want to say something about the fence wall?
As I said in the other hearing, we built this fence because the deck went a little bit higher because the landscaping. So if we do a 6-foot fence over there, it's fine, but there's not going to be privacy from the deck to the neighborhood. I'm sorry, to the neighbor patio. I mean, we're going to be able to see each other normally. That was the reason of the 8. And I already said this, I think, the last time we talked 30 days ago. But yeah.
Landscape, trees, bushes.
I think on the side where the fence is actually the high side, so it'd be going downhill from there, not uphill. So it would not necessarily be able to see into your yard, even with a 6-foot fence.
That's correct. I actually went out there and looked at it, and their property, I would say, is 1 foot to 2 feet above the property that's the other property that's next to them, where they want the 10-foot fence. And I agree with you that that fence makes it. I just don't see a reason for an 8-foot fence. I still, you'd have to convince me about that.
To me, it looks like a wall, not a fence. But by definition, my city ordinance definition is still a fence. I understand. Go ahead, Jim.
The question that we all answer is there a right to privacy out here? Is not having privacy in your backyard equivalent to a hardship? Because I'm telling you, living on a golf course, I don't have any privacy, and the ordinance doesn't allow me a privacy at all. I can, in the morning, I can look out having coffee 25 foot away, or 8 golfers ready to do.
I'm looking on my back window, and I got windows looking straight at me from the neighbor behind me. So
Howard, I agree with Jim. I have the same issue. If somebody builds on the right side of me, they can look up into my patio area anytime they want. So I have no privacy as well.
So what you're saying is if we start granting a variance for privacy, we could be covered up with people wanting to build 8 and 10-foot fences.
Well, absolutely. Across the street from me, there's an 8-foot slab. The neighbor's fence is below the height of the slab.
I thought last week we addressed the fact that you have no expectation of privacy legally in your backyard. I'm pretty sure Aaron covered that.
Yeah.
Inside your house, yes, but not outside.
And to me, a fence is an enclosure that defines a perimeter, not just a singular wall that blocks a view from the inside. Like I said, by city ordinance, it's still considered a fence.
You can take action on this if you wish.
Personally, I don't see, I don't have a problem with the 8-foot fence, 6-foot, 2-foot difference. I don't care. But if they go back and change the ordinance and say 8-foot privacy fences were allowed, I think it'd be great.
I agree.
We're dealing with the ordinance, and we're dealing with what it says. And since there's no inherent right to privacy, you can't really call it.
I agree with you on that, Jim.
I mean, I'll also address that at the end of our meeting.
So,
do we want to give them, do you have a motion on the floor, Fred? Do you want to give them another 30 days to address this and then decide, or how do we want to work it?
Well, I'd like to see if they have any comments to make regarding the fence at this time. or if they would rather reserve all comments for an extended date.
So you want to kill the motion. You have a motion
No,
and
I
a
just want
second.
some discussion on the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Barra, did you have anything to say regarding the fence now, or would you rather postpone it and talk about both the fence and the deck at the same time?
Vista, you want to say something? Because we have already say everything we had to say, but I don't know if my husband wants to add something else.
Are we talking about that we're gonna have
The
another 30
fence.
days for the fence too?
If you wish.
Madam
What
Chair,
is,
before you
what
make
is gonna,
that,
yeah. But
Go ahead.
before you make that motion, you may want to ask if there are any public comments.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any public comments about, I know we had some replies from neighbors, but I didn't see anything
I don't think
from
there are any for
neighbor
today.
that's affected by the fence.
So there's no public comment?
Apparently not.
Okay.
So, any comments from the applicant at this time?
no.
Okay. So I guess we have a motion to postpone and bring the fence issue back in 30 days at the same time as the deck issue. Can we have a motion and a second? Can we get a vote on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any
Give them 30
opposed?
days.
Any opposed or
Can
abstaining?
we clarify exactly what we are going to, can we clarify why we are bringing it back in 30 days? Is the sole purpose of bringing the fence issue back in 30 days so that they can identify a hardship? Is that the one and only reason we're bringing it back in 30 days? Or is there another reason we're bringing it back in 30 days?
Or with the
Because I think
fence,
it's
the
really
only,
critical that the applicant know exactly why we are proposing this 30-day delay so that they're fully prepared when they come back.
right. Well, the variance on the fence is strictly for the height,
Right,
the additional 2 feet of height.
right.
So they would have to meet the same criteria as the deck in defining a hardship with the fence in order to, for us to allow the additional 2 foot of fence.
So then you're
And-
saying
and-
that the sole purpose in giving this 30-day delay is so that they have a chance to identify the hardship and so that we can evaluate whether their proposed hardship is valid or not. So that's the one and only reason that we're delaying this. Is that true?
I think there was also some mention of going back to the contractor to see if he had insurance that would cover something that was wrongfully built
I think that was on the
on the deck.
on the other.
But it could also apply to the fence since it was also built without a permit.
I think that they need to, this is Howard, I think that they need to understand that privacy is not a hardship, okay? They need to understand that when they come back here, that if they say that, oh, we want the 10-foot or the 8-foot fence because there's a privacy issue, that's going to end up getting them denied. They need to come up with a reason for the 8-foot fence that does not include privacy.
And we're talking about the contractor they used. At one point, it seemed as if the gentleman referred to him as a next door neighbor on other property that they owned. He may be a friend who is skillful, may not be a technical contractor. And if that's the case, he would not necessarily, or most likely would not have errors and omissions in order to cover this type of a situation. So even right now, we should be able to identify whether he is a real contractor in the fullest sense of the word, where he has contractor coverage, contractor Or is he a skillful neighbor who helped them do this? Because otherwise saying to go back for 30 days and talk to him, there's no point in talking to him if he's not an actual contractor.
Well, he
Yeah.
may be an
To answer that
individual, Ms.
question-
Howard, he may be an individual, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have insurance.
If the man would have a remedy for redoing the slab, that might help our applicant. Or reducing the size of the fence if it's the same contractor. You know, if it's just a guy down the street, you know, that's difficult. But if it is a true contractor, then the contractor is the person to go to for a remedy for this.
But don't you
All I
think
was
we know
saying,
right now if
they
he's
need
a
to verify.
contractor or not?
They need to verify if he's actually a licensed contractor. That's all. That's all. I was just looking for remedy for them.
Okay, so
Agreed.
that is one of the things that you would be doing in this 30 days is getting thorough information about your contractor. If he has the kind of insurance that would cover him changing, modifying, rectifying the violations that have been put in place and that you're asking for the variances on. Is that what we all understand?
Yes.
That
Yes.
and addressing the issues of a hardship and identifying that for us.
Madam Chair, so you had a vote. I think maybe the only person who didn't express their vote was Ms. Aird, right? Or was it unanimous? Because
I didn't express a vote because I wasn't exactly sure what we were reconvening for. I'm
But we
still not.
have our 75%, even if Linda didn't vote, I believe, since we have 7 people here.
right, but we
Go ahead.
need to know what her vote is so that we can record it properly for the record.
Okay, can I hear the motion again so I really know what I'm voting on?
The motion was to delay both the deck, well, we've already done the deck, to delay the fence another 30 days so that they can have the opportunity to come back to us and make a more reasonable argument that has to do with a hardship. They need to understand that that hardship cannot include privacy.
Okay.
And that was seconded by Armando.
Okay. And I will vote in favor of that.
Okay. I believe that makes it unanimous. Was there any abstaining votes? Okay, that makes it unanimous. So, Ms. Ibarra and Iska, it looks like you have another 30 days to come back before us once again and try to achieve your variance so that you can take or you can try to remedy the situation so that it meets with the ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess we're ready to move on to the next one. The next variance is an application for a variance granting relief from requirements of Section 22, Chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinance to allow portions of an existing wood privacy fence type E to exceed 6 feet in height at 21007 Niagara Cove or Highland Lake Estate, Section 32, Lot 32192, and a 0.0179 acre tract at the rear of this lot is described in document 20171367757 of the official public records of Travis County. So I think we're ready for a staff presentation.
Can we leave? Excuse me, Iskander
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Maria. Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Have a good evening, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yes, ma'am. You ready for me?
I'm ready for you.
Yeah, just a mild explanation about the tract in the rear. That was a separate tract of land that was deeded to the property owners. If you want to adjust the setback in accordance with that additional property, you have to replat, but we do allow you to put a fence back there if you choose to. Now having said that, you may notice that the staff took a bunch of photographs and added them to your packet. The applicant asserts that the fence is 8 feet tall. We think it's a bit taller than that, and that we gave you the photographs that led to us to believe that, if you will.
I actually went out, this is Howard, I actually went out and looked at this property and went to the other property. Hang on for a second. It's on Nashville 21006 Nashville, which is directly behind the 21007 Niagara. And that fence is huge. I mean, if you look at the photograph, I mean, I went back there. It doesn't look like a fence. It looks like a retaining wall. I mean, it's huge. And I don't think there's any reason in my mind to have an 8-foot fence. I just don't think that that's based on that requirement. That property has got to be 4 to 6 feet higher than the property behind it on the Nashville.
Yeah, it looked to me like they had built their 8-foot fence on top of the neighbor's 6-foot fence. So
Yeah, they did. That's exactly what's happened. Yeah. So the fence, if you look from the ground, if you're looking at 21006 Nashville and you're looking into their backyard, you have like a 5 to 6 foot fence, and then on top of that you have another 8-foot fence. So this fence is not 8 foot. It's at least 13 feet, maybe 14 feet.
Yeah.
So I don't really know that 8-foot fence is really required.
Is that fence built on a retaining wall?
It looks like it, yeah.
No, I think it's got to be, yes.
Is it a retaining wall or is it a fence?
Well, there's a retaining wall underneath that fence. If you look at some of those pictures of the from the Nashville Cove direction, looking back at it, I mean, you're right. That 6-foot fence looks like it's at the very bottom of that 8-foot fence. There's got to be a retaining wall there.
It looks like the fence was designed to provide privacy for the patio doors that were in the rear of the house. And so the fence looked like it was like giving complete shelter and privacy to that second story patio doors. And maybe that was the motivation for making it that tall.
Yeah, for clarification, I think the bottom portion of the fence did get backfilled from the applicant's side. And of course exposed as a taller wall from the neighbor's property. You can see it, you can see the backfill in one of the photographs.
Yeah, I saw it looked like the yard had been terraced.
Right.
But I mean, the bottom line is, if you're measuring that fence from the yard, it's 8 foot, right?
Well,
Yes.
it wasn't before he started. No, sir.
But I mean, where it ends up,
That's a good question, Jim. Is that fence count? Because that's got to be a retaining wall there because it is backfilled.
Well,
So,
only
I mean-
part of it is a retaining wall, I think, and the other part is just a fence on top of a fence. It's hard to tell.
Not all of it because there's two levels on that backyard.
Right,
There's
but
two
only
levels.
off on one side, from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's all still unpermitted.
Do we
I'm
have,
sorry. Say that again, Roy.
That wasn't me. I don't know who was speaking, but it
I just
wasn't.
said it was still in all, it's unpermitted.
right.
That-
Is
building
the
a retaining.
applicant present?
I'm sorry. I got a question.
Okay, go ahead, Emily.
Okay, so building a retaining wall and backfilling that, it's not, you have to get a permit for that as well?
Yes.
Ah,
But
okay.
you can't even, without an engineering design, we won't even let you build a retaining wall that's taller than 4 feet.
so do we know
Okay.
that?
And like I said, we would not treat this as a 4-foot wall from either side. And it's definitely like what we consider the height of the fence to be. It's not 8 feet just because it's partially backfilled on one side.
So the fence is considered the whole fence plus the retaining wall,
Yes, sir.
which makes it pretty tall.
According to our inspector, at least 13 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah, 13 feet is not a fence. That's it almost sounds like a prison wall.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Would the applicant like to make some presentation or try to justify this fence?
Yeah, I mean, y'all threw me for a loop with this whole wall issue now as well. Had no idea. The fence is only 8 foot tall on the grade that it's at now. If y'all are saying y'all are considering the grade plus the fence to be included in the overall height, is that correct?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. From immediately on the other side of your property line, that fence is 13 feet tall. Doesn't that from our perspective is what counts.
Is a wooden fence considered a retaining wall? I mean, it's not even.
Not a very good
one. The fence is sitting up on top of the ground. So what you're saying is there is that, it's probably 2 foot wide section from transitioning from the lower tier to the upper tier. That 2 foot wide section is the overall height, correct? And that wall does not run. The fence is only 8 foot tall, other than that section where it transitions down. That 2 foot wide section.
Why do you need an 8 foot fence there?
We're sitting up 5-6 foot higher. I mean, you said it a minute ago. We're sitting up 5-6 higher than the neighbors directly behind us. I went and talked to them. Had no idea that we needed to do this or pull permits, but they've got a pool. They've got kids. They're always in the backyard. I discussed with them what my plan was. They were all about it. It gives them privacy. It gives us privacy. It kind of separates the two properties.
Okay, well, again, this is Howard, and that doesn't represent a hardship like Jim was talking about and like Lydia was talking about. That doesn't represent a hardship.
Are you allowed to have privacy when a sex offender lives in the neighborhood?
That doesn't represent a hardship.
Okay, well, I was told somebody lives over there back behind us somewhere that is a registered sex offender, and I think that might play an effect.
I'm
Was
curious
your work
about
done by a contractor?
I'm sorry?
Was your work done by a contractor?
I am a contractor. I work for a firm. I had no idea. I mean, I do commercial work. I had no idea I needed to pull a permit for this or get a variance for it, even though it's stuff that I do all the time in the commercial world. So yeah, I had help. I had guys come out there and do it, but I ran it.
I have a question about the area that is backfilled. Is it like 6 feet higher than the rest of your yard?
No, ma'am, it's 4.5 foot.
And are you depending on that neighbor behind you privacy fence to hold that dirt back?
No, ma'am. It's built up with stone.
So you've built a retaining wall that's around the back part between the fence and your soil,
Yes.
and it's 6 foot. How tall did you say it was?
It's roughly 4 foot. The high end is what you see, what's exposed right there, where that short section of tall fence is. That's as tall, and then it just tapers out to nothing because that's the direction of the grade. It slopes down that way. We wanted to level up the yard, so that wall basically dies off into existing grade.
Roy, I have a question. This is Howard. Does that retaining wall require a permit?
If it's taller than 4 feet.
Have you measured it?
Greg measured it at being 5. I think you've got a photograph in the packet.
Yeah, the photograph makes it look as tall as the neighbor's 6 foot fence, and then he's built 8 foot on top of that.
On the inside, and I think his explanation was he's not depending on the wooden fence to hold the dirt back.
Right.
He's got a retaining wall inside that made of stone.
Right.
Separates the wood fence, and the wood fence is simply covering up the retaining wall.
So there's actually a 6 foot fence back there that he built an 8
I
foot.
don't know if it's 6. From his property line side, Greg measured it at 5.
The fence? Or
No, the backfill, the retaining wall backfill.
Okay.
Okay, well, this
He
Howard.
suggested 4.
If that's 5 foot, if that's 5 foot, then it required a permit.
Yes.
If it's over 4 foot, according to Roy, it requires a permit. And there was already a fence there that was 6 foot tall, apparently. And he did build his 8 foot fence on top of it.
No, that's incorrect.
It's inside of it.
Inside
the wall.
Right.
That back fence is roughly a foot and a half into the property line.
Right.
But it's elevated above his fence.
Correct.
I mean, you started your 8 foot at the height above his fence. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. At the new grade of the backyard, that's where the fence starts. If you're on top of the new grade on top of the wall, that's where the fence starts.
If you're looking,
this Howard, your retaining wall and his fence. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry.
Is there space between your retaining wall and his fence?
Correct.
That you have, Fred, this is Howard. You have a 4 foot retaining wall, then a 1.5 feet back from that retaining wall where it was backfilled into his backyard, you have an 8 foot fence. So from the neighbor's point of view, you have a 13 foot fence.
I saw that.
Yeah, we all did.
Well, but let me ask you something. If that fence was a 6 foot fence, even though to the neighbor it looked like it was much higher because of the retaining wall, would it be legal then? if it was permitted. I mean, we're, you know,
We would not have permitted it. We would have sent them here.
you would not have, well, the first question you got to answer is the retaining wall legal? If it's not legal, then you got to go back and solve that problem first. Had that retaining wall been permitted and legal, and then he built a 6-foot fence, top of that, the new grade after the retaining wall, would that have been legal with a permit?
It's not what's under discussion.
Well,
No, but you know what? You know, the point I want to get to is Tim's already said that we're going to discuss 8-foot fences at the end of this meeting. If there was any hope that we're going to get that ordinance changed, you know, there's an attempt.
It won't be anytime soon.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that discussion has to do with unpermitted fences, not necessarily 8 foot.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they haven't.
Well, and let me just clarify, okay? And I didn't include those photographs. I didn't think you'd be interested. The applicant is correct. There is a 1-foot gap between the existing fence and this fence. And in that 1-foot gap, you can see it's taller than 8 feet. It's the idea that this retaining wall eliminates the 8-foot, reduces it to an 8-foot section of fence. It's not true. It's sitting on the ground there and more than 8 feet tall. It's at the same elevation as the neighbor's fence.
Okay.
And Jim, I'm not going to talk about
pictures of the cone that's sitting in between it and the cables that's reinforcing the wall.
Roy, this Howard, let me ask you a question. So he has a 5-foot retaining wall. Technically,
he says it's 4.
He could be, okay, so 4 foot. Okay, so 4 foot. He has a 4 foot. So technically, he could build a 2-foot fence on top of that if he wanted to. Does that, in other words, I guess my question is, does that retaining wall count as part of the fence behind his property?
Yes, if that's part of his fence, yes, sir.
Okay, so the 4-foot retaining wall then is part of his. So really, you're saying that he's not asking for an 8-foot fence. He's asking for a 13-foot fence.
That's absolutely what I started saying, and
Okay.
I am saying, and we would, as a result, we wouldn't permit it. And here's my point. It's exactly what happened. He can't build a retaining wall, okay, 1 foot inside his property, okay, and put a fence on the outside of that retaining wall and saying, oh no, that retaining wall subtracts the height of the fence. Makes it short. It doesn't.
Even if that's ground level, I don't guess I'm following you.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Roy, if his retaining wall is 4 foot tall, and he built a 4-foot fence on top of it, then he would be within an 8-foot limit for his fence.
He would be at the limit of his fence. You are correct.
So he
In
could.
other words, I can't build a 6-foot fence on top of a 6-foot wall and say it's the total is only 6. We would not have permitted it and would have required the variance.
I got a question. In terms of retaining walls, and this is, I'm talking from ignorance here, okay? That's why I'm asking the question. Don't you have to have engineering and special conditions and all kinds of drawings and stuff for that?
When it's taller than 4 feet, yes, sir.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and in my comment, Jim, about 8 foot, it's going to be not specifically 8-foot fences. It's going to be a topic of violations, unpermitted stuff we need to discuss.
Okay.
So if he had built a 4-foot retaining wall and put a 4-foot fence on top of it, he would still need a variance for an 8-foot fence.
You
But
are
he should
correct.
only stick up above his neighbor's fence a couple of feet, not 15 or whatever it is.
Still would have needed stuff on the retaining wall.
Right. And you may recall
Well, if
the
it's 4 foot
definitions
or
of,
under, I guess he doesn't need it, but you know, for his fence to be a legal 8-foot fence, it could only be 4 foot on
Right.
top of that retaining wall.
and that's our point. Not that you can't approve this, but approve what it is. It's not an 8-foot fence from our perspective. It's taller than that.
Yeah, I don't see any way it could approve that. I don't see any hardship that would justify that height of a fence. But I'm open for discussion and anything somebody has to address.
Roy,
this.
is there any way I can get you to meet me out there and walk this?
I've got the photographs, but you know,
It's already been done.
yeah.
And there's,
I have a quick question.
you want to do public comments?
Well, I mean, I technically live in the home as well. My only question would be, do we take into consideration at this point the slope of the original lot in the backyard? Because that's why we brought the fence up, or the yard up to begin with. It was a very steep slope. It was all rock. And we do have dogs. And so that was our original plan in bringing up the yard to begin with, was because of the slope of it.
It was about a 5-foot drop coming off the back porch.
Still would have needed additional documentation.
Right. And once again, I mean, you guys have the authority to approve whatever fence you think is warranted. But from our perspective, it's not an 8-foot fence is the only thing I'm trying to suggest to you. We measure it from the outside.
That is just that 2-foot section, though, what y'all are looking at.
Okay.
So I understand that completely, and that absolutely. But the fence going all the way across is not that tall.
No, didn't suggest it was.
Okay.
But the drawing says it's 8 feet even at the max, and that's all we're saying. We think otherwise.
Of that section right there, I completely understand, and that's changeable. That's fixable.
Yeah, we still have an unpermitted retaining wall too.
Madam Chair, I want to make sure that the board understands that the gentleman has an 8-foot fence on top of a 4-foot retaining wall. As Mr. Jambor explained, legally, that means 12 feet.
So
Right?
if he
It doesn't mean 8 feet. It's 12 feet.
If he moved that fence 6 foot back into his yard and his retaining wall was 6 foot further out, would it still be, what would it be then? Would it be an 8-foot fence or would it still be 14
We
foot
still
fence?
have a retaining wall issue.
If he built it on flat ground and the maximum height on both sides of the flat ground was 8 feet, it would be an 8-foot fence.
Okay.
Still be illegal.
Right. And in fact, I mean, he could build a structure within the setback, okay, and build it, you know, much.
I mean, we're still, you know, I can't see any way to prove it because it's 8 foot and that's not illegal anyway. But, I think if he moved it in a little bit and it was a 6-foot fence, he'd have him a fence.
Roy, this is Howard. How far back from the retaining wall would he have to build a fence in order it to be considered whatever the height of that fence is?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, so let's just say instead of 1 foot, he was back 15 feet and built a 6-foot fence. Would that still be 6 feet, or would it be considered 10 feet, 4 feet plus the 6 feet?
If it's built on top of a wall, we add the height of the wall. If it's built on flat ground, we don't add the ground.
Okay, but the question becomes is how far back from the wall does he have to build the fence in order to be the wall, the retaining wall, not to be included in the height of the fence?
He needs to build it on the ground, I understand.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's the retaining wall in this case. It's not built on top of it. It's built next to it.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, this fence goes all the way to the ground. Before the retaining wall was built, it goes all the way to the ground. Facing the property.
Fence came in after the wall. The wall was built, the fence,
Right.
that 2 foot
Covers it
section,
up.
that just at that 2 foot section,
Mhm.
that is taller than 8 foot, absolutely. But along the backyard, that's not on the wall, that's ground level.
Still 8 feet, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Tapers down to something.
Right.
I'm just trying to, if we don't approve this, he's still gonna need to put some sort of fence in that backyard. And I'm trying to, hash this out and give him a little bit of guidance as to what he can do.
Well, his neighbor back there, doesn't his neighbor back there have a 6-foot fence?
Right. And once again,
I think the fence is 6 foot because I walked back there. I'm 5 feet and it was taller than me.
right. And once again, you guys have the authority to approve it. But like I said, from our perspective, there are portions of this fence that are taller than 8 feet.
Yeah. Do I hear any kind of motions to approve or further discussion or disapprove?
Are we still on the public?
Yes, I guess we are.
Okay, perfect. I would just like to add that, I have 2 retainment walls, both built by my builder. So I would assume that he would have gotten a permit to build them. My fence is, it's 1 retainment wall and then there's another one behind it. And then it's like 2 feet back is my fence, which I got a permit for. But if you're going to include the ground, I mean, yes, my fence is almost taller than my house, but it's only, 4 or 5 feet tall, but it's on the ground. It's not on a retainment wall, which is like Marcus is pretty much saying, or, the home builder or the homeowner.
Can I stop you for just a minute? Can you tell us
Yes.
who you are and where you live?
Yes, Amy Parsons at 21104 Niagara Cove.
Okay, so your property backs up to his.
No, I look at his house.
Okay.
Number 19.
From the front.
Okay.
I am in the box of people. I mean, I'm in favor. I feel like it just gives him privacy. I mean, and y'all are talking about hardships and stuff like that. And he did say that he has a sex offender that could see in his backyard, may have kids, I feel like that is a hardship because I have kids. I feel like, yes, that is still privacy, but I would feel the same way.
I have to agree. We live right next door to him at 21103, right next door. The fence is beautiful, and the sex offender lives right behind us. We don't have a fence, but I will definitely get all the permits when I do. But I want mine to where he can't see in my backyard as well. It's privacy, and I don't want a sex offender looking in my backyard. And I didn't know he was there until after we built our home.
You still have an unpermitted retaining wall.
But we didn't know we had a sex offender either. What kind of rules do we have when we have someone like that right in our backyard? We can't protect ourselves from that. That's not a hardship, having a sex offender in your backyard. Oh my. Oh my.
Hey, Marcus, this is Howard. I have a question for you. So the guy behind you is a registered sex offender. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
No, I'm
direct-
No.
talking to Marcus.
Me?
Yeah,
Behind you or?
Not directly behind.
is a registered sex offender.
He's catty corner to Marcus, I would say.
He
Is he
can
number
see in their
11?
backyard.
Mr.
He's
Ruiz,
on-
please mute please mute yourself. Madam Chair, can we get clarification of whether this person from the applicant on whether this person is number 11? I'm looking at page 78 of the packet.
Ms. Ruiz, is that who you're talking about? Ms. Ruiz, what is your address?
21103. We live right next door to Marcus.
She's number 13 on the map.
Yes, number 13 on the map.
Yes, ma'am.
And the sex offender is 11, correct?
It's number 11 right behind me.
Yes, number 11. So on Marcus's lower half of his bottom tier is catty corner to him, and he has no fence. Number 11 does not.
Nope, he does not. I mean, that's the reason why we're on the call, because we do want to put a fence up. We are going to get all the permits that, we are required to get. But I want privacy from this man. I want complete privacy that he cannot see in my backyard. And I did not know he was there until after we already bought our home and purchased it and moved in.
And is he's registered as a sex offender?
Ma'am.
He's registered?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, he's not showing up on the list.
Me?
No, I mean, I guess whoever you're speaking of is not showing up on the watchdog list of registered sex offenders in your area.
His name is Sterling.
Yeah, we've looked him up on Watchdog.
I'm
Yes.
on criminalwatchdog.com.
Amy, can you give them his name,
Yeah,
his last name?
I cannot think of his name right now.
Okay. I can get my husband to pull it up.
If you do Google his name, it happened in Colorado. I even called the Lago Vista Police Department. I mean, obviously you can tell that I have 2 kids in my home.
Is Green Park Drive close to Niagara? Is that what are you talking about, an address on Green Park Drive? No?
No, ma'am. He's on Nashville.
He's on Nashville Cove.
He's on the corner. He's on the corner of Nashville Cove and Newton Drive, I believe.
If he's number 11, I'll get you the name. Give me a second.
This is Howard Hoover. I'm looking at it, and he is on the corner of Nashville Cove and Newsom Drive. He's right on that corner.
What site are you on, Howard?
I'm on. It's called www.city-data.com. Soso Lago Vista. It basically is information related to sex offenders.
Because I'm just on criminalwatchdog.com, and that's usually what I use. So I guess now it's concerning to me that this isn't showing everything that you guys have.
Yeah, Dixon T. Sterling II is what's on the.
Yes, that is him.
That would be him.
And, he actually sent in a notice that said that he was for granting this fence permit or granting this variance.
No kidding.
Yep. He may approve it, but he's still a sex offender.
Maybe he wanted to go away with temptation.
Wow. Wow.
This is Howard. In my mind, the sex offender creates a hardship.
I do. Oh.
Madam Chair, it's certainly a unique situation associated with that piece of property that is beyond the control of the property owner. And from that perspective, it would be an appropriate hardship. Now, it doesn't in and of itself justify an 8-foot fence, but it would be something that you could consider as a hardship. Now, based on the map, this particular applicant does not share a yard or a fence line with that particular person. So take that for the value, whatever value you want to assign to it. It appears that Ms. Ruiz's property would abut or be connected to it, but the current applicant's property does not.
Can I just make one quick comment that if you can see, I hate to say that the height of his fence, if it were any shorter, Mr. Sterling could see right in his backyard, right from any window in his home. He could look right in his backyard if it were not as high as it is now. And I'm hoping and praying that when we go and we decide what kind of fence and everything we want to put in, I do want to put in a high fence because of him. And I want ours to match up with Marcus's. I want it to look aesthetically correct back there.
Well, not only that, but if you look back and, yes, he can see into the yard, but I mean, if you do a taller fence, it would actually protect kids more. If you're looking back at the hardship, because of the fact that, he has no way of getting into the yard. I'm not saying that he is, going to try to attempt this. I'm just saying for the protection of children around him. I mean, what if Miss Ruiz had grandkids come over?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, and I do have grandkids.
I mean, kids or grandkids, it doesn't matter, but it's a hardship. And then it goes back to, my thing. I have 2 retainment walls. My fence is on the ground. I got a permit. It was approved. Like I said, okay, so then is the lower portion of my fence considered, because if so, my fence is, taller than 8 feet. It's taller. I mean, it's almost taller than my house, but it's on the ground, just like Marcus is. So I just don't understand how the ground is, with the elevation of Lago Vista, how you can prevent that, and how are you going to include ground on top of retainment? I don't know. I just don't understand it.
Hey, Marcus, this is Howard again. I have a question for you. The neighbor behind you, Marcus, does he have any issues with this fence?
No, sir. Before we did it, I went over there and I talked to them, and they were ecstatic about it because they've got kids and they play outside in the pool and everything else, and so they were all about it. They actually came over to the house and looked at it, and they were more in favor than anybody else.
Understand.
I wanted to make sure, again, I had no idea that the route that I'm going right now is the route I was supposed to take, so I didn't, but I did at least go talk to them and make sure they were going to be okay with it.
Okay, thank
Marcus,
you.
when did you build the fence?
Ma'am?
Do you remember what month you built the fence?
Probably late July.
Okay, so it's really very
We
new.
moved
That's what I'm
we
asking.
moved in late June.
Tim, did you have something?
Yeah, are we gonna have to revisit the issue of the retaining wall?
If it's over 4 feet, I think it needs to be addressed.
If it ends
Is
up
that a
being over
separate?
4 feet, again, I don't know the exact dimensions of what it is. I figured it was around 4.5, 4.5. If it is over 4 feet, if I get the guys that built it to provide the drawings for that, well, can we go that route? Is that going to suffice? Or?
Yeah, that'll be fine. We just want to make sure it doesn't fall down and hurt anybody.
Absolutely.
Brett, I'd like to say that we delay this for 30 days again, give Marcus a chance to look at his retaining wall to see how high it is, and if it is more than 4 feet, provide the engineering that went into that so that he has an opportunity to return to this group and give us the information. That will give us more time to think about, having a sex offender living next to you and building a wall to prevent him from being able to see into your backyard. I'd like to actually be able to do some research on that.
Well, with the topography of Lago, I don't know how you're going to avoid that 100% with the uphills and downhills without allowing fences that are, up to the sky. We're only looking at 8 foot today. Did you want to put that in the form of a motion, Howard?
Yeah,
Well,
I can make a
want to
motion.
close the public hearing first. Close the public hearing first.
Okay. I'm told we need to close the public hearing before we make a motion. So
okay.
Let's close
Thank
that.
you, guys.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate your comments.
Okay, I'll make my motion now, and I'm making a motion that we delay this for 30 days to give Marcus a chance, the opportunity to go back, measure his retaining wall, and if it's not properly permitted, to get it permitted and that kind of thing, and also for us to be able to do some research on sex offenders as well.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Is there any more discussion on that before we take a vote? I don't see anybody. So all those in favor of the motion to postpone for 30 days, approval of a variance or disapproval, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstaining? Jim, are you abstaining? Guy? Jim Guy?
No, I voted aye.
Okay. We can't see you, so it's hard to tell.
Right, I understand.
Erin, did you have something to add?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, so that is, I guess, sort of tabled until next time, which will be the same time next month, the first Monday at 3 o'clock.
Aaron, this is Howard. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Johnson, and we'll look
Hey,
forward to
Marcus, how big is your
Thank
dog?
you.
I'm sorry?
Dog.
Say again?
I say, how big is your dog?
I've got a 8-month-old silver lab that's right at 80 pounds probably right now. So he's going to get to be like 120.
Could be big enough,
Thank you.
Okay, you can be excused if you'd like, Mr. Johnson. Next variance is application for a variance granting relief from the requirement of section 22 of chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinance to allow both an existing fence and a new portion of a 6-foot wood privacy fence type E within required setbacks at 4083 Outpost Trace, Highland Lake Estate, Section 9, Lot 2564A. And I guess, Roy, you're up with a staff presentation.
Yes, ma'am. This one feels like a vacation compared to the other ones that we've had. Even though we do have another non-permitted fence, Mr. Smith bought the house that way. His builder did that. In fact, he made me go back and do the research and find out how many permits the guy didn't get. So, and turns out this was one of them. It's not grossly in front of the house, but it does encroach a slight bit into the front yard setback. And now Mr. Smith bought 2 other lots, and he simply wants to extend the fence in the same line across his new lot configuration, if you will. Also on Rockwood Drive, he is marginally closer to the right-of-way than we consider ideal. Although in this particular case, we don't see that it would present a traffic hazard of any sort. There is a vacant lot on the corner, but it's got plenty of room to avoid what we call the vision triangle, should he elect to put a garage even on that same side. So, like I said, compared to the other 2, this is a walk in the park, or other 3, I guess.
Is this a 6-foot fence?
Yes, sir. Like I said, the only thing wrong with it is he's lining it up with the existing fence, and it's a hair closer to Rockwood, but until we changed our ordinances once upon a time, that would have been fine.
Hey, Fred, this is Howard. I actually went out there and looked at this, and on, I believe it's Outpost Trace, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but the fence is 20 feet back from the road, and there's also a slope that goes up that has to be 5 to 6 feet. There's no way a car would even if you had a wreck, would make it up that. I mean, you have to travel 100 miles an hour to make it up that hill. And then the fence itself sets back another, probably 3 feet from the top of that hill.
Yeah.
The property pin is 20 feet away from the edge of the road, and then along Outpost, and then we're trying to put the.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Oh, Ben Smith, 4083 Outpost Trace.
Thank you.
Okay. As far as Outpost is considered, the property pins are 20 feet away from the edge of the road, and we want to go by the table A, developmental standards side yard setback of 15 feet off the property line. So, which is where it currently is, but we've drilled holes, but we have not set the post yet. So that way, that's where we're coming up with the 15 feet for Outpost.
But that side yard is from the adjacent property, not from the road. Isn't
No,
that correct?
from the road.
No, it's the side of our house. Because
I know, but your garage is supposed to be 25-foot setback, and it's not supposed to exceed in front of your garage.
Well, the actual distance, if you look at the PDF that I sent, the actual distance from pin 5 is 16 and a half feet to the edge of the road, and then another 45 feet to the fence, which is adjacent to the garage.
So you're saying what you're asking for does not exceed in front of the garage?
Correct.
All behind.
It's all behind.
All
Everything we're asking for is behind the house. Because as Roy calls it, we live on a pimple.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Mr. Smith. Oh, I know Roy mentioned that you had a number of permit issues with your builder. You are building this fence yourself?
Yes, sir.
Or do you have a contract? Okay.
I'm building it by myself.
There you go. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
So is the existing fence that's there was built by the builder? Is that what you're saying?
The existing fence was installed by Discount Fence Company, and their final payment was received by the builder on December 28th, 3 months before we closed on the house.
Hey, Fred, this is Howard. The fence comes out from the side of their house, okay? And then there's like one panel that's 6 feet long. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. Well, he wants to attach on to continue that fence down along Outpost Trace, which is 20 feet from the road. I went out there. I just don't see an issue with any of this.
So here's a
But
question.
the fence,
What does the edge of the road have to do with anything? We're talking about setting off of the property line.
well, in one of the questions I had when I initially applied for the permit before I started drilling anything was the fence worksheet has everything to do with edge of the road.
We're talking about this?
Yes, sir.
I don't see that. I mean,
If you look on page 2,
big black boxes around the properties, my understanding, that's the property line.
if you look on page 2, it tells you start measuring off of the road right of way. And that's where a lot of the confusion came in, and a lot of the emails back and forth between Roy and Carl and several others to seek clarification as to where I'm supposed to put this.
There's a road right away, not
correct. The road right away is the property line.
Well,
the road is the property line.
Well, the road right of way, in my case, if you look on pin 1, the middle of the road is 11, edge of the road is another 14, to the edge of the right of way is another 8 to put the fence that I'm currently trying to extend at 46.4 feet off the edge of the road.
The edge of the paving.
Yes, sir, the edge of the pavement.
That's where the confusion comes in. Everything is measured off the right of way, not the paved edge. The paved edge isn't even consistent in Lago Vista, where it might be in relation to the property line. Might not even be.
How far are we into the right of way, or where?
It's a mild encroachment into the front yard setback, and like I said, the site plan he submitted is use the base as a plat, and you'll see the setback shown on the plat.
She has 2 of them. We put them.
This Howard, if you guys go to the one that has the bold red that outlines where he wants to put the fence,
okay.
8 represents the piece of fence that's already there. Okay, that kind of makes a turn up Outpost Trace. It's like a 6-foot section. Okay, and then 7 to 5, 7, that side where 7 is on, he doesn't even have a fence there. He has the holes drilled for the posts because he's putting in metal posts and then attaching the wood to it so that it doesn't rot. So he's not putting wood in there. The thing that runs along, in other words, that's kind of perpendicular to 5, that fence is already there. Okay, and so is the fence that goes down on 4. That fence is already there. Okay. So all he's looking to do really is get an approval for this fence that's along 7, runs from 7 to 5, if you will.
On Outpost Trace.
On Outpost Trace and
off of Outpost Trace, and that's where it's 20 feet off of the road. And if you go out there and look at it, like I said, there's this hill. It's got to be 6 foot that goes to the top where that fence is at, and then that fence is back another 2 or 3 feet from where the top of that hill is. So he's 20 feet at least. I figured it was probably more than 20 feet, but he says it's 20 feet. I just don't see a problem with it because, you know, you'd have to come down Outpost Trace traveling 100 miles an hour to make it up that hill.
From the edge of Outpost Trace, the fence that we're trying to extend would be 34 feet from the edge of the road.
Oh, 34 feet from the edge of the road. Okay.
Because you've already got those silver posts planted along the way where you're going to put the wood fence. So it's
but they
easily
are not
visible
cemented.
to identify where you're putting it.
Yes, they are not cemented because there was some confusion between the email I got and the sign that was put in the front yard, so I had to stop drilling holes.
But it makes a very clear visual for anyone to look to see where you're going to put it. So it's just like Howard says, well, I went there too, and it's clearly okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me
We
ask-
all went. Go ahead, Jim.
Are we all in agreement that the existing fence there by .8 is currently out of compliance, and we would have to get a variance to get it for it to be in compliance? Are we in agreement with that? Is that fence in compliance?
It is not, sir, and that's why it's mentioned.
It's not out of compliance?
No, it is non-compliant.
Okay, non-compliant. So,
and you are approving a variance for that fence as well.
okay, so that gets us right back to hardship, doesn't it? Gets us right back to having to answer those 7 questions in the affirmative. The thing we did to the first applicant, we got to answer those same 7 questions here too. We can't say, oh, well, it's okay because there's a hill there and it's up the hill and it looks good to us. I mean, we got to have consistency.
Mr. Smith.
The first time I saw that fence, I thought, who built that? And how come there's a RV up there? And, you know, it looked like maybe somebody was building a house, but there's an RV there and they were living in it while they were building or something. But I thought, well, this fence goes all the way down to the road. It seemed like.
But Aaron, if you bought a house that had a fence that was not compliant and the city issued an occupancy permit, doesn't that thereby give that fence a variation, a variance already? I mean, wouldn't that be, in effect, the city has already approved that variance because he got the occupancy permit with that fence already constructed.
And I know that's true, Ms. Mayor.
For what the builder did and what he got an occupancy permit for.
Ma'am, that fence was not on the permit is all I can tell you. It was not part of the building permit. I can't tell you. You know,
Did he get an occupancy permit with it?
No, ma'am, it was not. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It could easily have been built well after that, before he closed.
Looks like Tim has a comment.
And that's why I went ahead and I called the builder to find out who the contractor was who installed the fence. And once I got a hold of Discount Fence Company, they said, yes, our records show December 28th is when it was paid, which was 3 months prior to us purchasing the house.
Mr. Smith, do you think you have recourse to that fence company to have them put it in the right place?
What do you mean?
Well, you go back and tell them they put the fence in the wrong spot and they got to move it.
Well, that to me, that would be between them and the builder because they told me, it's like, hey, we did it for the builder and we got paid. If you have any issues, unless it's warranty work, see the builder.
You think you have recourse with the builder? Can you
I
go
do
to the
not.
builder and have him put the fence in the right place? I'm trying to keep you, depending on what happens, if there's an expense for you to move that fence, can that expense be paid by your builder? I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but that could be recourse for you to get this corrected at no cost to you.
This is Howard. I agree with Lydia. You know, the city gave a certificate of occupancy. That fence was built 3 months before this individual moved in. If they had a problem with, the city had a problem with that, they should have been out there and let him know when he was buying that there was a problem with it. they gave them a certificate of occupancy, and they should just let the fence stay where it's at and give them a variance.
And I can go get some of the closing documents that show that the fence was on the initial plat that we signed at closing.
Let me ask a question. So the variance is strictly for that fence from 7 to 5. It should have been moved back a little bit. Is that correct? Is that the only thing? Is that correct?
No, sir, it's not correct. It's
Okay.
for all of the existing fence that encroaches in the front yard setback, which is everything once it crosses the setback line where 8 is, that entire section till it turns 90 degrees. And it's also for that small section that is parallel to, not parallel, but adjacent to the Rockwood Drive right of way. That also encroaches about 10 feet from where we would expect it to be.
And Roy, is that you're talking about 1 to 3, the 1 to 3 on that drawing?
Right.
Okay. And is that fence there already, or they're getting ready to build it?
I don't think it is there.
Okay.
I may be wrong.
The fence from 1 to Howard, the fence from 1 to 3 is not there. The fence from 4 all the way around to 5, where that corner is right there, that fence is in. It's built. Okay.
Right. And there's
the other
no
fence,
required
the
there, but
fence
it did
7
require
is
a
not
permit.
built.
One at a time, please.
Let's make something clear. What's happening here from 8, where you see 8 makes that turn, the reason that fence is outside of the outside of what is the ordinance, the fact is that it's 20 feet from the road instead of 25 feet from the road, which would mean he would have to move the fence back 5 feet. Again, I don't see any reason to do that. I went out there and looked at it. I don't see a problem with this.
Well, even if I agree with you that, Howard, that there's no reason to take that small section of fence and move it back, are you going to let the rest of it run illegal too? All the new fence that he's going to install?
But see, with the new fence that I'm trying to install, it actually goes by the definition of Table A, developmental standards for the side yard setback only being 15 feet.
I disagree, sir.
That's not a
No,
side
because you have a lot on the other end of it that could very much have a residence. It's a residential lot, so it's not going to fit that.
Even your
Right,
plat,
From the right of way, not the street.
and your plat identifies it correctly as a front yard.
I mean,
Okay, Roy, can I ask a question, please? If
Yes.
this fence were to be in accordance with the ordinance, it would be set back 25 feet on the outpost trace side.
Yes,
And it
ma'am.
would also be set back 25 feet on the Rockwood side. Is that correct?
That is correct by the current ordinance.
All right, that's what I wanted to know.
And by the way, the CO was issued well before December.
so what is
this?
for not building the new fence in compliance with the ordinance?
I'm sorry?
I was asking the applicant what is the reason for not building the new fence in compliance with the ordinance?
Okay, what we're trying to do is I want to build a shop in between, up against the retaining wall that my neighbors built. And we built a playscape for the kids. And if we're going to put another little accessory building that the wife can do crafts on, we need a little bit extra room, and that 10 feet is going to give us a perimeter around her building so that we can best utilize everything on that lot. Okay, and the date that we have on our copy of the certificate of occupancy was signed by Carl Finney, date February 4th of 19. And the fence was installed or finalized December 28th of 18.
How long is that? How long is that section that's out of compliance? That section 8, how long is that?
I would have to go measure it.
It's
About. Is it 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet?
6 to 15, 6 to 15 feet, maybe.
Okay. So if you were going to build 5 to 7, it really wouldn't take that much to build it all the way to that angled, move that back and build it to that angled place. I'm just asking the question here. And then from 1 to 3, I'm just trying to figure out what the hardship is here.
Okay, what pins are you referring to? Because I'm not seeing.
Okay, I'm talking about number 8, where the existing fence is.
Okay,
and then pin. I'm sorry?
That 8?
Is it 8 by the garage or 8 by the porch?
I'm looking at, I don't know. I'm just looking at the drawing where it has a square with 8 on it, where your existing fence is. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. And then on the drawing from square 7 to square 5, that fence right there. If you're going to build that fence and you had to move that short section, that 6 to 15 foot section back, I mean, I don't think the cost would be that much to go ahead and move it all to that. I'm just asking the question here. And I'm just trying to figure out where the hardship is here.
Well, I mean, it's.
Which line is he talking
We're trying to figure out which line you're referring to.
Okay, around where the fence runs by outpost trace.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at my drawing. There's a square with an 8 in it.
Okay, I'm not.
It's on the
Roy, do you have that? Can you put it up?
I cannot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I don't have your numbers.
Okay, well, where your existing fence is, that's out of compliance, where it angles back, where it turns, that's 6 to 12 foot fence. That's 6 to 12 foot length.
Okay.
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 So
the short section.
Right, that short section. So if you were to move it back, how far would you have to move that back? 5 foot to be in compliance?
I would have to move both sections. Once the parallel side of Rockwood, I would have to move that back 10 feet. And I would have to calculate out what the actual front yard fence would be.
And what that would do is destroy my garden. And if we move the fence back, we will also end up losing an oak tree, our only oak tree in that lot.
Everything else was cedars.
Okay.
And I agree. It's about 10 to 12 feet back, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So, and I guess my big question is, if I do that, then what defines my side yard?
The side yard is where your brand new fence that you already built is. And you can see that on the plat that's on your new lot. That same line that was parallel to that previously is your side yard.
Roy, you're talking about 4?
Well, it's 5.
Okay.
Because the definition of a side yard is extends from the front to the rear, which would be a long outpost.
Yeah, this is Howard. Normally, Jim, I would agree with you about the hardship thing, but because this individual bought the property with the fence already there, and the city had the opportunity to inform him to say that this fence was not compliant with the ordinances, and that, to me, that just means that he's experienced the hardship just from that. Go ahead, Tim.
Howard, we're talking about an unbuilt fence that could be easily in compliance by putting it where it's supposed to be. There's no hardship here.
Then we have a huge gap. Then we lose our oak tree and we have a very large gap from the existing fence to the new fence.
I've seen fences built around oak.
And then we can't utilize the lot the way we need to due to having safety areas for the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, and the 13-year-old.
I think you already have that with the slope.
Well, and that's why we're trying to get the fence up.
So tell me about this oak tree. Is it actually on that 25-foot setback line?
The oak tree is on the line if we move the fence 5 feet back.
Okay. And it's our only oak.
And you can't tear it down, but you can build around it.
Yeah, you can build around it.
A lot of people build around them.
But then we either go into the encroachment or we lose more of our property.
And if we come in, then we're gonna have to change where the actual accessory building goes.
You don't lose your property because it's where the line is supposed to be.
The setback lines.
What is the line gonna be?
I mean, it's I understand, but it's if there's going to be there has to be some justification that because of the uniqueness of your property. It can't just be because in complying with the ordinance causes me to lose some of my property because everybody in town has a.
And you don't lose your property.
Okay, so how do we define what's the front and what's the side of the house though?
I think Mr. Jambor's told you.
Well, it's on your drawing and it's correct, sir.
Yes, but if the rear yard extends the full width of the lot and the side yard extends from the front yard to the rear yard, and we live on a pimple, then what defines the front of the house?
Your door, your front door.
Okay.
That pimple is part of the right of way. Okay.
Right.
So that's all your front yard, and you'll see on the drawing you submitted that apparently was your surveyor. All that shows as a 25-foot setback. It is parallel to outpost trace and includes the pimple.
Correct, but it also includes the majority of this side of my lot.
The side yard prior to you adding lots is where it shows an existing 6-foot wood privacy fence. That is along your side property line. That was your side yard when your house was built.
Correct.
That side yard simply moved. It didn't change outpost trace into a side yard.
There's Howard, there's one other thing to consider here. If you come along toward his house and then run perpendicular to that toward outpost trace right there on the corner where the 5 is, that fence is built. So if he has to move that fence in 5 feet, he also has to tear out 5-foot of fence, okay, along which would be parallel to Rockwood Drive, basically perpendicular to outpost trace. He would have to tear back 5 feet of that fence as well, okay, in order to, if he was to meet the 25-foot setback.
Was that permitted?
No.
That was the builder.
That was the builder. So if I can't keep the fence at 15 feet where it's at now, I'm going to lose 10 foot on one side and probably 15 foot on another, in addition to the 6 or 8 foot section that's parallel to outpost.
I want to ask Aaron a question here. I don't want to create an out of compliance fence. Is that what we're actually doing here? Because the fence has not been built. It has to go back in order to be in compliance. It has to go back to the setback. That's the correct place to put it. And if we do this, then we are allowing an out of compliance. But I don't think it's necessary.
This is not a legal non-conforming situation. I think that's where Howard may have been wanting to go, that this was a legal non-conforming circumstance because he bought the property and the people who built the property didn't get the proper permits and didn't put that part of the fence in the right place. That's not what we have here from a legal standpoint. What this board is required to do today is to look at those conditions, look at those items in section 11.20, establish, as Mr. Kason is tried to lay out, whether there is a hardship. There is no legal right to do whatever you want in your backyard. There's no legal right to, just because you're not going to be able to put everything in your wildest dreams in your backyard, that does not create a hardship. The hardship is a specific condition that is unique to your property that creates some necessity to grant the variance. Whether it's unreasonable disruption of the natural terrain, unreasonable destruction of existing flora, that's your tree. Now, is there a way to address the issue with the tree? You build around the tree. Everyone in Lago builds around the trees. So there are ways to avoid the tree. That in itself doesn't 100% create the hardship. You're looking, is there a hardship that must be redressed? Moving the fence back, the fact that the builder built the fence in the wrong place does not create the hardship. Is this variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial right? You have the property, you have the backyard, you are able to use the yard. This does not create a situation where the yard would be wholly unusable. There are reasonable alternatives, as Councillor Collins pointed out, that would alleviate the difficulty or the hardship, meaning there's a reasonable alternative to deal with the tree. If you choose to grant the variance, you're required to grant a variance that is no greater than is necessary to alleviate the hardship. The critical point here, ladies and gentlemen, is where is the hardship? What, the fact that someone built an illegal fence or didn't put it in the proper place does not in and of itself create a hardship if you can physically put it where it belongs, if you can put it in a place that complies with our ordinances. That's the critical considerations for this particular application. There's not a terrain issue that is that you can't overcome. There's, yes, the yard will be a little smaller, but the yard is intended to be that small based on where you're allowed to build the fence legally. And without some hardship justification, there's not a legal basis to grant this particular variance. Sometimes these particular types of applications require you to undo things that people did wrong or illegally or without proper permits. That's the unfortunate part of this. This is not a special exception or something that can be granted because it looks good. You have to have that hardship. So.
Hey Ben, this is Howard. Let me ask you a question. Okay. If you were to take the fence that's along Outpost Trace and you were to move that back 5 feet, and then the other one that's parallel to Rockwood, and you were to move that back 10 feet, because it doesn't sound to me like this is going to get approved for you. Okay.
Right.
If that's the case, then your only option is to move that fence back 5 more feet, okay, on Outpost Trace and 10 foot on Rockwood Drive. That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay, and here's my question.
Rockwood Drive, 25-foot setback.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
now,
he's already 15 feet, so another 10 feet would be 25
Okay, well, I don't
feet.
know what the measurement was originally.
well, if we do 25-foot setback on Rockwood, then I'm not going to be able to get my trucks and trailers and the RV out due to where the driveway is.
The driveway, You
Ma'am?
already have a driveway there. It won't change. It's just the location of your gate is the only thing that would change. It would be set back farther if you're putting a gate on that side of the fence.
And that's where I'm trying to if I move the gate back, then it messes with the grade of trying to get the trailer out.
The grade doesn't change, does it?
On Rockwood, big time. I had a concrete company actually send a safety representative out to tell me that my driveway that I built was not up to safety compliance with what he would allow trucks to go up. So we had to
rocks, yeah.
So we had to change it out and haul dirt in to make it level.
I don't understand how that is going to affect the fence.
If I move the fence back, then I'm going to have to change the breakover angles going up the hill.
So in other words, every time the truck pulling the trailer goes out the driveway, the back end of the trailer is going to smash the concrete when the concrete is poured and destroy the concrete going out.
And by moving the gate or moving the fence up, then I'll end up, as the last two guys ran into, go up to over the 6-foot fence.
But the driveway is problematic. You built the driveway, correct?
Yes, sir. For the purpose.
That you created
the driveway on that side of Rockport is no more than a pile of rocks placed in a row or a line.
Well, we've actually built up about a 3-foot, 2.5, maybe a 3-foot retaining wall, and then brought in six loads of road base to get it packed up and leveled so that we can get dump trucks up.
But it's not a concrete slab like driveway.
Correct. And I can't pour that.
Yeah,
Sir?
Was that permitted?
Absolutely, absolutely. But that goes into a whole nother can of worms as far as a violation that I received on it as part of an email that I sent in 3 or 4 months ago.
I still don't understand how that's going to affect your fence or the gate. You can make that gate as wide as you want, so I don't see how that's going to affect whether you can get trucks in and out or not.
It has to do with the driveway is only about 14 feet wide, and we did not build up that entire area, and that's in some of the pictures that we sent in as part of the package. And there's actually, you can actually see some of the ruts in the asphalt from the RV going to the right, going up the hill, up Rockwood.
The RV is supposed to be on a slab or a approved surface.
And I actually have another email saying that it does not have to be because it's in my backyard.
Oh, okay.
I asked about that one too. I've got an email on that.
Oh, I'm glad. But like I said, the whole side of the fence could come out as a gate, so it shouldn't affect, the drive going in and out of it.
We need to come to
if the driveway's too narrow, that's a whole different problem.
And our driveway is about 12 foot wide. The one that we made anyway.
Yeah, it almost seems to me like the further away from the road the gate is, it'd be easier to navigate that turn, but I don't know. I'd have to see it.
Well, I saw it, but I didn't try to get a RV in there or a truck or something.
I can get
sweetie.
You can
put the RV up there easy now. The trucks, trailers, tractors, all that stuff. And the tractors I have are farm tractors.
But if we move the fence back, it means that if we move the fence
with a
back,
gate
the driveway gets worn down.
Those aren't hardships.
Now what?
I said those aren't hardships. We probably need to come to a conclusion, Fred. Think.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Let's ask him if he's through. Are you through, Ben? Are you through with your presentation? Your comment?
And is there any
Obviously, yes,
public
I am.
Get to
Is
lose
anyone here to present any
I
kind of
got
public comment?
None of my neighbors are having any issues with the fence or where we're trying to put the fence.
Except the one on the corner.
Well,
That
and
doesn't-
we
That doesn't
we
have
tried
a-
talking to him, but he doesn't want to have anything to do with us. He said he would sell us the lot for twice the market value.
Well, if you don't buy
No.
it, some builder will.
Right.
That's neither here nor there.
Well, would losing a big, very large portion of my garden be a hardship?
No, Joyce.
Use of the land.
No.
There's a couple things.
If you can have a garden with the deer and there's no fence there, you're doing better than everybody else in Lago Vista already.
Well, it's inside the fence where y'all are saying it's gonna have to be moved back.
But there's no fence there now.
Actually,
And
there is a fence.
I
And-
agree with
Builder's
Tim.
fence.
We can't approve a non-existent fence and approve it to be non-compliant.
And see, we're trying to get permission to put the fence on the 15-foot setback from the 15-foot setback from the property line, which is 20 foot away from the edge of the road.
You know, you can build a fence right on your property line if it's like a wrought iron fence or some other type
Yeah.
of fence. Just can't do that. And so here's a cut. You know, talking about the oak tree, we could grant you a variance to build your fence out around that oak tree. You know, instead of having to come on the inside, you could go on the outside and build into that 25-foot variance for so many feet on either side of the oak tree, rather than have to chop it down. I think you got a good case for that. Or you can convert it to a wrought iron fence and go on all the way out.
But, and see,
You're
I
not gonna
can't go all the way out because of the cliff.
Well, you can go out to the edge of the cliff. I mean, you can put a wrought iron fence anywhere you want to within that
A
20.
non-privacy fence.
Right, and we're trying to get a 6-foot privacy fence so that when the toddlers are kicking the balls around, that it doesn't go through the wrought iron fence. And that's why we don't want to go with a wrought iron fence.
Well, you can actually put a screen on your wrought iron fence too to keep the ball from going through it. I see a lot of that on the golf course.
Yeah,
And
we need to come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Keep little animals out too. But I mean, it's, you know, as long as you're in the regulations, you got options. They just
Do I hear a motion from anyone? I don't see any reason to approve a non-compliant fence without hardship, either on either road, either Rockwood or, but there's 6 other people on this committee that it only takes 6 out of 7 of us to pass it. So if someone would like to make a motion, we can make a vote.
Do you have to close the public meeting first?
Probably.
She did that, I think. I thought you did that.
Oh, I asked if there was anyone here that would like to make a public comment, but there being no one here, I guess I assumed it closes automatically. But in spite of that, we'll close the public hearing and I entertain a motion if someone has one.
I make a motion to deny.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further?
Okay, so
All right, well then let's. Pardon?
What was the motion?
Go ahead, Ben.
This is Jim Guy. What was the motion?
The motion was to deny the variance.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Questions?
No
comments?
interest in a variance to build around the oak tree or anything like that?
No. That'd be another application.
$250.
No.
All right, all those in favor of denying the variance? Could you
All right.
sound off? Because, you know, he's gonna need a, all those in favor of denying the variance?
Amadeo.
Linda? Linda, are you voting?
Not in favor of denying.
You're not in favor of denying,
No.
okay. Howard?
I'm not in favor of denying it.
Mike?
I voted no.
Okay. So we
This
have,
is Jim Guy. This is Jim Guy. I'm not in favor of denying it.
okay, and Amadeo?
I'm denying it.
Okay, so it's like 3 or 4 to,
4 to 3.
all right, all those in favor of, I guess, opposed to denying, will you sound off? I need to know how many there are. Jim, Howard's 1, Amadeo,
No.
Linda?
No. I made the motion to deny.
You made the motion to deny. Okay,
Yeah.
so Howard is for passing it, Mike is for passing it, and Linda is for passing it. So it's 3 to 4 right now that the variance is denied.
It's killed anyway because you need a super majority.
Right. We need a 6 out of 7 in order for it to pass.
You're muted, Aaron.
So Madam Chairman, the motion fails. If there's a different motion, you can take that up.
Do I hear another motion?
Oh, did you? Okay.
Jim, do you want to make another motion to build around the tree?
No, not if he's not requesting it.
Yeah.
To request.
I think they have.
I think for a lack of supermajority to pass this variance, that it's been denied, and Ben will have to come in compliance with his fence, or he will have to submit
Take off
another
the
variance.
top.
Where he
Put it
thinks
back in there again.
passed if he wants
true.
to.
Okay, well, here's the question. How do I go after, am I supposed to go after the builder to fix the fence?
Put it over here. Here.
Not the one you're building.
What about the one that's already there?
Yeah, what about the one that's already built?
Yeah.
The one that the builder installed that was installed prior to COO?
Well, that's why I asked you earlier, and you said the fence guy put it back on the builder, so your recourse is to go to the builder to have him move the fence.
No,
That's already,
we're talking
But
this part that-
but the city signed off on it.
Isn't that legally non-conforming?
The city signed off on the house, not on the fence.
Okay, so I need to go. So I need to get a hold of the builder.
We need to get a for sale sign and leave Lago.
So I need to get a hold of the builder to fix the fence.
So is there a portion of the fence that is already existing that will have to be moved, or are we just talking about the portion that you're wanting to build?
No, we're talking about the stuff that's already that was already installed as part of the purchase of the house.
So how much of that fence is non-compliant?
10, 15, 45, maybe 50 feet.
Down that side there by Outpost Trace,
Yes, ma'am.
that whole section is not out of compliance.
But you just, okay, what part of the existing fence that the builder installed on the initial lot is illegal?
Roy?
The part that goes too far, too close to Rockwood?
As soon as it makes that turn parallel to Outpost Trace is the portion that of the original fence that is non-conforming.
The part that goes behind the property that's on the corner is in compliance.
And see, there's another question.
25 feet off of Rockwood and on Outpost Trace.
And none of that was the original fence. I mean, the original fence was one lot. I'm a little
we're done
confused.
with the request for the variance. We've denied the variance of the part that you have not built yet.
And I'm not going to build that part. I'm asking about the part that was built as part of the purchase of the house.
Right.
I don't believe is that part of this discussion?
Yes, sir.
Only
That's
that
one of the reasons for the variance.
down too close to
Aaron?
Rockwood.
We have a motion for that, Aaron? I mean, is that on the agenda, that part?
The motion regarding the variance failed. The variance is not approved. Any discussion that you have beyond this is outside the scope of what's on our agenda. If you have questions about how to deal with your fence, you need to contact an attorney to find out how to sue the builder, because they're the one who put the fence in the wrong place.
Okay.
They would be the person you'd have recourse against.
And I believe Roy can define the part that needs correction.
Okay,
Right.
and part of one of the things that we submitted with the variance package was to legalize or illegalize the part of the fence that is in question.
That is correct.
Your motion was denied. It didn't pass, sir. You did not get approval. There
Okay,
was
so now I need to.
majority approval of your variance request. No
Okay.
part of your variance was approved.
Okay, okay.
That is the reason why I asked Madam Chair if she wanted to entertain a second motion. Somebody could have made a different motion to approve a different version of the variance, whether it's allow you to build around the tree or to allow you to keep the part of the, some portion of the existing fence. No one made that motion, sir. So there's nothing left to consider. The matter is gone, is dead. It's over.
Okay. All right, I guess I have no further questions.
Thank you for coming.
Have a nice evening.
Somebody getting some feedback. I'm not sure who.
Okay, I'd like to make some comments. Okay, the meetings are recorded, but we're not going to be putting them on YouTube. The board has the right to go into executive session. Now, if we ever, I don't know what our lead time is or what circumstances, but if we ever feel that we have a case coming up that we need to go into executive session, so you may talk to Aaron about legal matters, we have the right to do so. And I don't know who's muting in the background. Now, the city is having a problem. We are being inundated by people building, clearing lots, putting in fences. Nobody is getting permits. Now, the word out that I've seen from others and on Facebook is that go ahead and build it because nothing's going to happen. So that, some of that comes down to us, but I want to talk about building and standards on the next session. So if I get elected, I want to stay with this board. I've been on it for a year as a board member and 2 years as your liaison. I think one of the things, I don't know if any of you applied to go onto the building and standards committee, but I think the applications are closed, but if we were to open them back up and anybody decided that they wanted to get on the building and standards based upon our experience, I'll support that. I think most of you are coming back to stay on this. But I think
this is Howard. I am on the buildings and standards.
And I have a question. I filled out an application, but there was no way to submit it online. Why is that?
Oh, I don't know.
You can fill it all out, but you can't submit it.
You have to email it.
There's no email on the website.
You can drop it off.
You can email to anybody. We'll deliver it.
Yeah, we'll handle it for you if you get it to one of us, Brett.
Okay.
So we are trying.
Your email, well, I can email Roy. I'm sure I've got his email. But...
Right.
Sorry, Tim.
But we have to address this now. That's the city, Aaron, Roy, Josh, We are going to try to do some things which I don't know specifically with the Board of Standards to address this so that we can get some of this alleviated, because when it comes to us, I think this is one of the rare times we've denied anything. And I know Lago Vista is not built on a grid and every one of these things is special, but no one is adhering to our permitting system. So one of the things that we may address, and I don't know what would be after that, is a standard and licensing or permitting for contractors, and making sure contractors have liability and general liability insurance. So if they do this, there's recourse for our citizens. So maybe at the first of the year or whenever this is, Freth, you and I, and your Howard, you're going to be on the board, or anybody else that would like to join us, we can go to the buildings and standards and give them an idea of what we are running into. Because I think we're going to get inundated. I think we're going to get more and more of these coming to this board.
Hey, Tim, this is Howard. I have been after the Building and Standards Commission to do this for a long, long time, and basically have been ignored at every point. Okay. I have been after the Building and Standards Commission to put some bite into the ordinances and codes. And they have basically refused to do it.
I think that's going to gain some traction. I think the city powers, we are going to address that. So I don't know when the next building and standard is. I think sometime after the election. I don't know if we're going to address this in December or in the first of the year. But I think we're going to have to work closely with the building and standards from our point to encourage them to put some vigor in it, as you say, Howard.
We have a Building and Standards Commission meeting this Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
All right.
What's
on your agenda? Sorry.
Part of the problem of code compliance, because that's pretty much complaint driven, the best I can tell. So these things are already built before anybody complained about them.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. So, I mean, at some point in time, we may have to take a bitter pill and have somebody rebuild something that's going to cost them.
Yeah, actually,
right.
Or when you see something being built, I guess we could call and see if it's permitted before we get it up there.
If I may, Madam Chair, for the last several months, these are not complaint driven. They're our staff discovering them.
Well, this Howard, whether they're complaint driven or not, the fact is that I agree with Tim. There are people building things that don't meet code, don't meet ordinances, and Jim and the rest of you guys are right. They need to prove that there are hardships associated with whatever it is that they're building. And the only way to stop this illegal building is to start to hit people in their pocketbooks. And that's the only way to stop it. You want to stop somebody from doing something, you got to hit them in their pocketbook, because otherwise they just ignore you.
Well, I think the builders take that attitude also. Well, we'll just ask for forgiveness instead of permission. You know, they start clearing lots when I know they haven't got a permit, and they do it on Saturday when there's nobody around to complain to.
I agree. In fact, I can tell you for a fact that this lot was cleared. The lot that I built this house on was cleared without a permit, and I had to fire the builder and hire somebody else to build it.
One other thing that the city
had to stop.
One other thing the city has done is that on weekends or after hours, you can call the police department, tell them about an illegal incident, they will immediately generate an email that goes to City Hall, to Roy or to Josh.
Actually, there's a complaint form on the website. You don't even have to call.
Thank
They had
you.
a stop
Yeah.
work order and they were still over there working. So. But like I said, it was Saturday, so.
Yeah, so the other thing that standards passed, which Howard did, was that, well, this was on Sunday. If there is a workman on the property, even if it's on a Sunday or a holiday, they're considered to be working and they're in violation. Saturday, I was thinking something else. They're working
Sundays
Saturday. They
only
can
or
work.
just Sundays only? They're not supposed to be working on
Sundays are the holidays when they're not supposed to be on the property working. If there is somebody on the site, they're considered under construction and it's a violation.
I agree with that. And we have a builder up here that's building and there's trash blowing all over the place. I have filed multiple complaints. There is so much trash across the street from this builder's, it looks like the city dump.
There's something else we have to be sensitive to is that the current legislature, the last 2 years, hostile to cities and counties. One of the things that we passed as an ordinance is that we had to have so much of a masonry front on all the houses built in Lago. The legislature took that away from us. We can't tell any builder how to build his house. So we can have clapboard, hardy board, whatever that stuff is. So we have to be sensitive to that with the buildings and standards requiring contractors to be licensed with the city and permitted. That's part of the things we have to deal with.
I agree,
Among other
Tim.
things, the legislature did to us.
You can't tell a builder what the outside looks like based on the new law that was passed by the legislature. However, I believe that what you can do is tell the builder that their house has to comply with what it looks like in the neighborhood. You can't tell them that they can't, what the outside has to contain, but you can tell them it has to fit into the neighborhood. I believe that that's true. And you could ask Erin about that because she's the one that would know.
Yeah, there with certain limitations you can do that. The other flip side for at least Lago is we have our anti-monotony. So it's, there's a little push and pull. We can't specify what the specific materials are as long as they comply with the building code. But we can have there are some limited aesthetic neighborhood consistency requirements. Really, the people who have the most power in that regard are the POAs. The city has very limited power, but if the POA has requirements regarding aesthetics, they can enforce those.
Okay, well then the question becomes is the city needs to cooperate with the POA. They need to go to the POA and say, hey, you guys have the authority to do this.
Like that has ever happened.
Why haven't we done that?
There's more than one POA in Lago, and there's HOAs like in Tessera and.
Yeah, we have vigor out here, baby. So POA in the city don't jihad.
Actually,
yeah,
the POA,
we're going to have some situations where we are going to deny hardships, and that's going to create a problem for those people. But I thank you all again for serving. I look forward to serving all of you again next year. I hope you all come back. And I think 3 or 4 of you said you want to come back. So we'll all jihad this thing down the road and get ready for next month.
Okay, Tim, thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. All right. Freth, you want to?
Sorry, Tim. Go ahead. Were you finished?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is Howard.
I second it. This is Mike.
All in favor?
Aye. It's way past cocktail time.
Bye.
Night, everyone.
Good night,
everyone.
Bye-bye.